So hello and welcome back to the walkthrough series, and in this episode we're going to be looking at 9618 variant 42 of May June 2022, and this is the Python implementation for question number 3. So let's go ahead and look at what we have going on here. So it says here that a programmer is designing a computer game that uses a set of cards. Each card has a number and a color. The cards are saved in the text file called cardvalues.txt, and this is actually the source file that we'll be working with for that was given. This is the source file that was given for this particular paper, and we will be working with this text file as it were for this question. So the program is a class named card. The class has the following attributes and methods. So here we have the attributes, number and color, and the methods, of course, are the constructor, the get number, as well as the get color method. So part A requires us to write program code to declare the class card and this constructor, and we are not to declare any other methods. So let's go ahead and look at that going on here in my solution. So you see that I have the class declaration going on at line number 4 there. Then lines number 5 through 8 we have the constructor declaration, and pretty much that's just about it really for the for this one, because we are supposed to declare just the constructor and the class as it were. Then maybe one thing that I need to mention is the convention of indicating that attributes are private in Python. So the way you go about it is to make use of an underscore. You prepend an underscore before the variable name as it were, and that's how you actually show that this is actually a private method in Python. But other than that, really you don't need to have any declarations going on, maybe say like in Java and other languages. So of course you'll go ahead and copy this code and paste it inside of the evidence document. Then moving on to part B, we have the two get methods that return the associated attribute, that is get number and get color, and you see that this one is going to return the number of the card, and the get color is going to return the color of the card as it were. So let's go ahead and look how you can go about implementing these two get methods. So we have those going on between lines 11 and 15 there. So we have the get number, which is returning a number, and we have the get color, which is returning the color as it were. And of course, notice how I'm always putting self, because these are methods that are inside of a class. So the first parameter that you're always going to pass inside of a method in a class is going to be the self keyword as it were. You can always check out my Python series where we go into more detail about this general Python syntax, especially for the self keyword as it were. So of course we'll go ahead and copy the code and paste it inside of the evidence document. Then part C requires us to write the main program that's going to declare an array of type card with 30 elements, and we are going to read in the data for the 30 cards from the cardvalues.txt file and assign each to the array. So here we are just being told the structure of the contents that we would find inside of the card values text file as it were. So they're just saying that you get a number, then a color, followed by a number and a color. And you can actually just go ahead and open the file here, and you actually see that that's what's going on here. So this one is the number for the card, and it's red, the number for the card, and it's black, and so forth and so on. And they are saying that we have 30 entries as it were. So assuming, or rather knowing that 2 entries pertain to one card, it means that for 30 cards, we actually just divide that number by 2, and we get, rather multiply the number by 2, and we get 60 entries. So in essence, here we have information for the 30 cards that have been mentioned here in the question. So we are going to declare an array of type card with 30 elements, as well as then unpack the data from the text file into the arrays as it were. So let's go ahead and look at that here. So I have that going on inside of the main method right here between lines 35 and 45 there. That's the implementation for that part of the question. So on line 36 we're declaring an array, or rather a list that's going to hold 30 elements right there. Then on line 38, since we are going to be working with a file, chances are high that we might run into a file not found error. So we have to use a try except block as it were, so that we can handle any exceptions that might arise during runtime. So here we have the try block on line between lines 39 and 43. So we are opening the card values text file in read mode, and we are going to call it the file that is the variable we are storing the name of this card values.txt file with it. So here we are now making use of a for loop that's going to run, or that's going to iterate 30 times, because we will be reading 2 lines in succession, then add the data into an array. So that's what we are doing on line 41. We read the first line and convert it into an integer. Then we store it inside of that number variable there. Then we move on to the next line and we read that as a color, and we store it inside of this color variable right here. Of course, we are making use of the strip function to remove any trailing white space, as it were. Then on line 43, that's when we actually pass the number and the color to the, or rather we are creating a card object, as it were. So this is the card constructor that we are calling on line 43, and then we take that card object and we store it at the current index position for the cards array, as it were. So it's going to happen 30 times for that is, we are going to read to unpack the data from the text file and store it into the cards array 30 times. So of course you would go ahead and copy the code and paste it inside of the evidence document right here. All right, so moving on to D, we have the question that says, rather we are supposed to implement a function, but maybe let's just read here. The program needs to allow all players a maximum of 5 to select 4 cards from the 30 available. A card can only be selected once, so the program needs to record which cards have already been selected. The function choose card takes its input an integer to represent an array index from 1 to 30, validates that the value is between 1 and 30 inclusive, checks if the card is available. It has not it has not already been selected. Then it's going to loop until an available card is selected, and it's also going to return the index of the card if it is available. So we are to amend the main program to store which cards have already been selected and write program code for the function called choose card. So it's quite a lot really that we need to do here, but it's very simple. So let me just go ahead and show you what I have going on here. So I have the choose card function implemented right here. So what I'm doing is I have this list I'm calling selected, and it's going to store a maximum of 30 cards, and basically it's going to store booleans as it were. So it's going to store 30 boolean values, sorry, not 30 cards, but 30 boolean values for the status of each card, whether it has been picked or not. So when a card is picked, it's going to be true, and if a card is not picked, it's going to be equal to false. So I'm initializing that to all values to false, because before the function runs, no card has been chosen. Then on line 19, we have the function definition there. Then we're using a while loop that's going to allow us to basically run or continue execution of this until you've selected the required number of cards, as it were. So we are using a try and except block in the event that we fail to typecast or to convert, rather if the user fails to provide a valid number, right? We are going to have to handle that value error exception that's going to be thrown, and we're also going to have to handle the value error that can arise if we fail to typecast line 22 there. So on line 22, we prompt the user to enter a card index, so the user can choose a card index between 1 and 30, but take note that I'm subtracting by -1 here, because our array index positions start between 0 and 29 maximum, though to the user it's going to be 1 to 30, but behind the scenes it's actually 0 to 29, so that's why we have that -1 going on there. Then we are checking to see if index is less than or equal to, rather if if index is less than or equal to 0, rather we're just checking to see if index is greater than or equal to 0 but less than 30, right? That's what we are doing right here. So this is one of the good things about Python. You actually just you could actually do it like so, or alternatively, if you wanted to, you could actually have a condition that says index greater than or equal to 0 and index less than 30. Right? You can actually do this, or you can actually do what I did right there on line 24 there. So this is actually the same thing that you can actually do. Instead of having to use an AND operator, you can just write it in one go like what I did on line 23 there. Then on line 24, we are checking to see if the value is not selected. That is, the value of the current index is not selected. Then if it has been selected, then we are going to set that to true. Then on line 26, we return the status for, or rather we return the index for the selected card. Otherwise, we have to tell the user that the card has already been selected, so they should choose another card. Then of course, we print, please enter a number between 1 and 30 should the user input or choose a value that is not between 1 and 30, as it were. So that's why we are using the while loop. So for as long as you haven't provided a value that is between 1 and 30, then you are going to have to keep typing a number that is valid. Then let's come back here. Amend the main program to store which cards have already been selected and write the code. So let's come here. Actually, what we're doing here, let me come back to and show you what's going on. Since we have this array code selected, right, it's actually going to be keeping track of which values have been selected. So this is actually the complete solution for this part of the question. So you'd go ahead and copy this code and paste it inside of the evidence document. Then coming back to part E, we are to amend the main program to create an array called player1 for player1 of type card. Then ask player1 to input 4 integers using the function from part 3D. Then store the cards in player1, then output the number and color of the cards in player1. So let's go ahead and look at the solution in turn. So we'll start with, you see that here, it says that create an array, player1, right? So that's the array that we created right there on line 47 there, for player1, right, of type card. So this is going to be holding information about the first player, as it were. Then it's going to ask player1 to input 4 integers using the function from 3D. So essentially we are supposed to call choose card 4 times, is it? So that's why we're making use of this for loop right here. So it's going to run 4 times, and each time it's going to call choose card. Then remember, choose card is going to return the index of the card that has been selected, is it? So the way we are going about it is we are going to return an index and store that inside of this card index variable right there, and then in the player1 in array or list, as it were, we are now taking the selected card from the cards array and we store that inside of this player1 list, so that basically we are keeping track of which cards player1 is selected, as it were. After which we need to output the number and color of the cards in player1. So the way we are going about it, let me actually just put a space back here so that you can actually see that is the same thing. So the way we are outputting is we are now using a for loop to iterate through the player1 list, as it were. So we simply fprint the number, then we get the card number, then the color, then we get the card color, as it were. So having done that, you would have completed the implementation for E item 1, and you can go ahead and copy the code and paste it inside of the evidence document. Then for item number 2, we are to test our program with the following test data. So we have the first test we are going to use 1, 5, 9, and 10. Then for the second test we're going to have to use 2, 2, 3, 4, 4, 5. Is it? So let me just go ahead and pull up the terminal. Then I will still keep our test data in view. Then I have to cd to the current folder, which is June22v42. Then my file, I will first call the Python interpreter. Then it's called question 3 underscore j22 underscore v42.py. So here we have to enter 5, other 1, then 5, then 9, then 10. So you see that the number is 1, the color is red, the number is 9, the color is green, and so forth and so on. Then we can go ahead and run it one more time and use the test data that's provided. So we can make use of 2, 2, So you see that it's telling us that the card has already been selected because we are storing that inside of that selected array. Then we can choose 3 and 4, then 4 again, and it's going to tell us that it's been selected again right here. So we can import the last piece of test data. So you see that these are the cards that the second test has yielded, as it were. So of course you would take a screenshot of your output, as it were, and paste it inside of the evidence document. So yeah, I think that's just about it for this question and also for this paper. We are done with the Python implementation. I'll see you in the next one.